know from yesterday's lesson, growing readers follow 4 steps when they are trying to figure out a word they do not know. The first thing they do is they read the sentence and in their brain they underline the unknown word. Then they think about what's happening in the sentence. Thirdly, they find other words that may explain the meaning. Sometimes it might be inside the word, sometimes it might be before the word, and sometimes it might be after the word. Lastly, they think, what are some other words that I might know that mean the same? And they plug it in. Now on our notes, I noticed there's a box in the middle. I would like to draw your attention to that box. So I'm noticing this box in the middle of your notes in your interactive notebook on page 55. It says, for example test questions, see practice test number 1, questions 7, 12, 13, 24, 28. And then it gives you other questions you can look at. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm learning, I like to know, well, what is my test going to look like? Because sometimes what we do in class looks different than what you do on a test. Let's look at how this box can help us. So using your interactive notebook, at this time, I would like for you to notice the tabs. There is one tab that says At Home Practice. Please open to the At Home Practice tab in your interactive notebook. I'm noticing in this box, once again, it says see practice test number 1. So using that tab, I'm noticing practice test number 1. Let's look at it together. At the very top of this page in your interactive notebook, you can see where it says the words practice test 1. Now in that box, it also told me what numbers to look at. It also said look at number 7. So today, I want you to notice that number 7 is a question you can use to study when you're practicing this skill of context clues. Now when you take your test, your questions will look very similar to this question number 7. Now on your interactive notebook, the skill is labeled, so you will notice it says L44A, which is context clues. The questions on your test will not be exactly like this question, but they will be exactly like this question. Very similar, but with a different passage. So I want you to know how to practice these skills. Each day in reading, you'll see that there's skills that match, and those are the questions you will study to practice those skills. It's kind of like in math. If you're practicing multiplication, you need to practice solving questions that ask you to multiply. In reading, you need to practice questions that ask you to do what we're doing on that skill. So notice this question is asking about determining the meaning of a word, because that's what a context clue is. Now there's also another part in this interactive notebook section called At Home Practice. Notice there's some additional reading comprehension questions. On pages 195 through 196 of your interactive notebook, I've created some questions that you can use when you're reading by yourself. So if you're reading your AR book, or if you're reading a book you checked out from my library, then this is how you can practice context clues when you're reading. And notice how I labeled it with that same word, L44A, context clues. When you're reading at home, you can ask yourself questions like, what was a word I did not know when I was reading? And try to figure it out. That's context clues. Or what do I think this word means when I come to a word I don't know in my independent reading time? And remember, we are supposed to be reading 20 to 25 minutes each night. So the practice at home section is the best tool for you when you're thinking about studying and preparing. And I always tell my students, don't wait till the night before the test. Each day you're supposed to take your interactive notebook home so that you can say, well, what did I do in class today? today I did context clues. Let me practice tonight. So when your test comes, you're ready instead of being nervous about it. Everything in the at-home practice tab will match your notes from that day, which matches your table of contents. So be very mindful of how to use that tool. Over the last 2 days, we've been reading the story Because of Winn-Dixie. Yesterday, we practiced using context clues to figure out the meanings of difficult words. Let's practice again together. We're going to begin with the word peculiar, and that's a very challenging word. So I'm going to go back to the text Because of Winn-Dixie, and I'm going to use context clues to help me figure out the meaning of the word peculiar. I'm noticing it here. So I'm going to begin by reading the words around it. Well, there was no answer, and I thought it might have been a wild man or a wild woman. Scared of all these books and afraid to speak up. Now remember, this is when Miss Franny Block is telling them about the bear, her experience with the bear. But then I became aware of a very peculiar smell. Oh, I see a clue. I'm going to underline it. Smell. Peculiar is describing the smell. It's telling me about it. Let's keep going. A very strong smell. Uh-oh. I raised my eyes slowly, and standing right in front of me was a bear. Whoa, this is a clue. Yes, ma'am, a very large bear. Now I'm thinking about what I already know. I know that bears, they live in the woods, in the forest. This is a clue. So I'm going to activate what I already know. We call that our schema in reading. And now I'm thinking about these clues I underlined. Smell, very strong, smell, and bear. I'm thinking it's probably not a very good smell if they've been living in the forest. Bears do not bathe daily. So peculiar is describing a very different or very outside or maybe not pleasant smell. Look at how I know that. Smell, a very strong, and a bear. Peculiar smell is describing the smell she's smelling from that bear. So it wasn't a normal smell that she smelled every day like people. Instead, it was a wild smell, something she wasn't familiar with.
She smelled it before, but she...
Now let's go back to our graphic organizer. I'm going to write the sentence from the text first. And I'm noticing the sentence was about that bear. I'm going to add that to my graphic organizer. Now I'm looking for any word parts, prefixes, root words, or suffixes. I don't see any prefixes, root words, or suffixes that can help me figure out this word, so I'm going to put an X on that box. And now I'm thinking about what other clues helped me. Well, based on what we have, we underlined smell was the most helpful and bear. So I'm going to add that to my graphic organizer. And now I'm thinking about another word that might mean the same. And I can plug this word in instead of the word peculiar. So a strange or different smell. So I'm going to add that to my graphic organizer. So now I know the meaning of the word peculiar is strange or different. So if I say, I had a peculiar morning, then I'm telling you it was strange or different. If I say, this is a peculiar pen, then it's strange or different. The word peculiar is a describing word. It's actually called an adjective. So now we've used context clues to figure out the word peculiar.